Chanting on page 18 for those who want to follow along. Yosam Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagavato Yena Bhagavata Dhammo Supatipano Yasa Bhagavato Asavaka Sangho Dhammayang Bhagavantang Sadhamang Sasangang Nilmehi Sakarehi Yatarahang Aropitehi Abhibhujayama Sadhuno Bante Bhagava Suchira Parinibhutope Pajima Janata Nukam Mamanasa Nilme Sakare Dukata Pandakara Bhujai Patiganhatu Amhakam Dikaratang Hitaya Sukhaya Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantang Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Asavaka Sangho Sangham Namami Vandamayam Buddhasa Bhagavato Puba Bhagat Namakara Karumase Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa.
Starting. So, good evening, all the brave people. Brave the smoke. No fire here, just lots of smoke. So. So I don't know how many people came because of the theme of the retreat. Probably doesn't matter so much, does it? But I've got to talk about something, so so I sort of modeled it around some kind of theme. So, and I think this one was
Beyond I making.
okay.
I get a title. I should have known.
Yeah. Beyond eye making. Okay, well, that's a kind of a grand title for a very short retreat, but at least we can know about eye making. Whether we go beyond or not, well, it's up to you. How diligent. Maybe you have lots of homework to do afterwards. But anyway, it's the just one particular theme I'm working on myself. It may be a little bit new to some people, or this is a phrase which comes out of the Buddhist teachings, out of the Pali Canon, eye-making, ahankara, for those who speak Pali. Yeah, anybody? Okay, I'll keep it English. But this is for me anyway, this is a very meaningful phrase. It's very rarely used in the Pali Canon and the Buddhist teachings. Probably more of you are used to the phrase non-self. So you see what a profound topic this is. You see, but when I came across this particular phrase, and there's a longer phrase added to it too, but I'll keep it simple. Eye making. When I came across this, I was very intrigued by it because to me it really epitomized the real you can say the real purpose, the real message of the Buddha. Eye making. Like I say, probably you're more familiar with the phrase non-self, anatta. Anybody? Or is it really over your head? But when for the phrase non-self, why it's mentioned very often in Buddhism, but unless you really know the context for it, it can be quite puzzling, especially for people in the West, who are so engaged with, self-promotion or eye-making, in other words. In the in Buddhist countries where they are familiar with some of the Buddhist teachings, they probably heard this particular phrase often enough. I don't know how many of them actually really know the essence of it, but at least they are familiar with it, non-self. But for many people in the West, could be even a shocker. Huh? Non-self. What do you mean, non-self? Here I am. Yours truly. But there's a special context for it. And sometimes these phrases are just picked out of the context and presented as some kind of important teaching. But, whether you understand it or not, or something else. And of course, within the context of the Buddhist teaching, the Buddha wasn't just philosophizing. He just didn't say, "Oh, non-self, good luck." He gave us a context for it of practice as well. This is a very, one of the most profound aspects of the Buddhist teachings, where he really differed from all other religions, actually, I think, pretty well, except for Taoism maybe, but the in the Buddhist teachings, this was a result of his practice, rather than just a philosophy. So he was presenting it in the context of people developing meditation practice, reflecting upon it, contemplating it. One of Ajahn Chah's, when Ajahn Chah mentioned about this teaching on non-self, he said, for example, if you just think about it, your head will explode. Because thinking is a result of self, is a self product. I think, right? Especially if you're a Cartesian, I think, therefore I am. You know Cartesian duality? Anyway, I won't talk about philosophy. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. The Buddha would say, because there's thinking, you think you are. Yourself is a result of your thinking, see? But in order to understand that, it requires the development of meditation practice, which ideally begins, at least in the first stages, is quietening down the thinking process so you can experience directly, rather than just thinking about you're not self. But the phrase I-making, for me anyway, it gives more to a bigger picture, it fills out the picture. The reason that there is non-self is because the I is made up. I-making. Because I is just made up, then it's really not a permanent, abiding entity. It's just made up. It's constructed. And so, it's isn't that reassuring too? If you just say no self, you think, well, who am I? What am I doing? But if you say, well, it's just you just made up. Okay, isn't that a little bit? So it doesn't take away all of your I-ness. Yes? Doesn't deny your I-ness to completely. But when you see it as a construction, you don't take it so seriously anymore, ideally. Yeah. But it requires that we do see it as something constructed. So this needs to be investigated, not just believed. Like all of the Buddha's teachings aren't just to be believed. You hear this I-making, though, it sounds logical, yeah, but be contemplated and realized for yourself. So the Buddha gave us quite a few helpful tools to use. And you can say, basically, it's it's not so different than basic Buddhist practice, we can say. We rely upon meditation exercises, practice of generosity, morality, meditation practice. But it's just giving another little angle on it. The Buddha he taught for 45 years, and so he met many different people with different levels of practice, different backgrounds, different particular education, and so he had a lot of experience teaching a great range and diversity of people. So he came from many different angles. There were some people who were, say, intellectual, so he could give, a very reasoned answer or guidance to them, very reasonable. Other people, they were very faithful, a lot of faith in him. So he gave a more faith approach. And then we come today, and each one of us is a little bit different. So there is the basic Buddhist practices, which everybody can use. For example, the meditation object. The meditation object we focus on is the breathing. Does anybody have problems with breathing? Okay, a little bit of smoke in your breath, but maybe you have other meditation objects you developed over the years. As long as they are, as long as they're compatible, I would say, to basic Buddhist practice, you can continue with them. I don't know what compatible, how you understand compatible, but the basic exercise of focusing on the breathing, initially it's an exercise in focusing attention. You focus attention upon an object. And since breathing is with us all the time, there's a very, you can say a very common object to be aware of. There are specialized ones, but since we have the breath with us all the time, we can actually use this exercise anywhere, anytime, once you get some familiarity with it. It's usually taught in the context of sort of like a classroom situation or a Dhammasala context on a meditation retreat. But, and sometimes it is a little bit, mystified sometimes. Some people might think, watching the breath is very spiritual, very mystical. Sometimes we give you a little mantra to recite with it too, So everybody gets their special mantra called Bhutto. But it's free. But sometimes the meditation exercises are presented maybe in a little bit specialized form, but the point is really that taking an object which is quite common to you, maybe you can also say kind of universal, probably focusing on the breathing is the most universal meditation object. So if you do find yourself in some other context, some other situation, some other retreat, then it won't be so mysterious to you. Well, I heard that before. And there are many different, meditation objects one can use to focus attention. Some of them are a little bit more specialized, but I would suggest you start off with the basic one, and then if you do notice there is some, you need some extra support with focusing attention, maybe you can develop other meditation practices too. When I was in Switzerland, one of our supporters was she was a disciple. She had a guru, Hindu guru, as her teacher, and she thought, well, Buddhism comes from India, so it's all the same stuff, same religion, and kind of at a general level, there are a lot of similarities. The Buddha actually adapted some of the Hindu practices. So she came to one of my retreats, and then she started off, like I mentioned about breathing meditation, but she already had developed this meditation using a mantra. You know what a mantra is? You recite certain passages, certain words maybe, auspicious words in Sanskrit. So she had her little mantra she'd recite to help her focus her attention. And it was okay for a few days, you see, because on the longer retreats, generally, we kind of give more emphasis to focusing attention. We call the calm meditation exercises, until the mind reaches some degree or some experience of calm. And then can bring in other exercises we call insight meditation. So after 3 days, I said, okay, now you can drop your meditation object of breathing and now try and be aware of the sensations in the body. And she got a little bit of a surprise because she couldn't drop her meditation object. And she realized that the mantra was meditating her, you see. She thought she was meditating on the mantra, but she couldn't turn it off. The mantra was meditating her and just went on automatically. Who's reciting the mantra? Maybe it was Brahma or somebody. I don't know. So generally, I find my experience is that there are some particular meditation themes that maybe are very powerful, but then you can get a bit stuck on them. See, if they're very specialized, you get stuck on them, and then it's hard to let them go. Basically, hard to let them go to develop insight meditation or other meditation practices. But something like the breathing, I don't know about you, but the breathing is not extremely exciting for me. I can let it go anytime. But if I had some, really powerful mantra or something or other, then maybe it's my special one, you see. And then it's a bit hard to put it down, you see. Very attractive. And maybe it does give you some, focused attention or calmness of mind, but, it's very so artificial that it's hard to use everywhere. So if we understand the basic principles, anyway, of meditation practice, Buddhist meditation, calm and insight, then we can be much more flexible and adaptable then, and use a variety of different practices, which, on one hand, it's helpful to have a regular meditation theme or topic or subject, because continuity and repetition supports it, especially concentration. If you could just sit here and you could actually do anything repetitively. You could sit here and say cats and dogs, cats and dogs, cats and dogs. If you do it long enough, your mind will calm down. Of course, you might not. Maybe you get some insight into cats and dogs, but not too enlightening. But certain objects, like the breathing, for example, the breathing is also very, very adaptable. You can focus on the breathing to help you calm the mind, and as it's a closed circle too. You focus on the breathing, and then the mind calms down, the body calms down, the breathing calms down. So as soon as the breathing calms down, the mind calms down. The mind calms down, the breathing calms down. See? So they support each other, you see. And you can use breathing as an object for insight meditation as well. You can observe the kind of breathing which is happening. See? And if you notice the kind of breathing, a little bit more detail, you notice the kind of breathing you have also shows your state of mind and your emotions too. When you have strong emotions, you find the breathing is more rapid, or more shallow perhaps. This indicates a certain emotional state, which may be harder to notice when you try and look at it directly. Especially something like fear. Who wants to look at fear? But look at the breath. The breathing is this way. There's frightened breath. See? So you can perhaps notice your fear indirectly, if you like, through the body. So developing this meditation practices, when we can experience some degree of calmness of mind, it allows a little bit more refined awareness of the process of eye-making, basically. If I go back to that theme again, eye-making. Most of the time, all the time, eye-making is going on in the background. It's like our, do they ever talk about DOS anymore? Yeah? Disk operating system? That's pretty old, isn't it? Okay. I'm sort of a dinosaur when it comes to computers. What do they call the operating system?
Windows 10.
Okay. I don't know. Anyway, whatever is your... what do they call it in general?
Operating system.
Operating system, yes. Disk operating system, DOS, right? Took out the disk. Yeah. Okay. So we have, but this process of eye making is your operating system, you see, running in the background. See, but it's for most people, you're so familiar with it. It's so much of a habit, you don't even notice it. However, when your mind calms down a little bit, maybe you can notice, aspects of it anyway, And then, when we begin the first stage in this cessation or beyond eye-making is to understand how it develops. And what is the process behind this eye-making business? Because we don't know it, we just keep feeding it. We just keep making it, as it were. We just add to the making of it. But when you recognize, what's the processes behind it, there's a possibility to disengage from it. And, you begin to recognize just, at a certain stage, some degree of eye-making is helpful. The reason that we practice spiritual practices, because there's some eye there would like some benefit. So it requires a certain amount of self-motivation, if you like, to the practice. But some of it is, some of it is a waste of time. Some of it is a waste of resources. Some of it is excessive. You get so wound up in it, you believe it's real. I saw some of these YouTube clips, there were these people playing the computer games, and then some people, they got so caught up in the computer game, they got up and they trashed their computer, They were so caught up in it, they forgot that it's just a game. And the problem was the computer, not them, you see. So we get so caught up in our I-making, we take it so seriously, and then when we get challenged, we get threatened, maybe somebody intimidates us or insults us, we get really indignant. And if you recognize that was just one aspect of your I, you made up a certain persona, and then it got shot down. It was phony anyway. It was artificial anyway. What's the problem? And of course, you can take this to the very, very advanced degrees. This holding on to this life, this body. We identify with this body. This body is mine. I make up my identification with the body, and then when it gets sick or starts to get weak or something or other, I'm upset. And I think, wait a minute, I want the body to be like this, but the body says, sorry, I'm getting old. Actually, most of the time it doesn't even say sorry, does it? You're the one who feels sorry because you're the one who feels sore. The body doesn't even apologize to you. When you really understand that it's just part of the making process, and whatever is made also gets unmade, right? Whatever comes together also separates. Whatever is born dies. So when you understand this I-making process, then when it starts, when it begins to unravel, no big surprise. Yeah. What is made also is unmade, so no big loss. Easy to say, yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's why we do the practice. You develop some of these practices, we get more focused attention, a little bit more clarity of mind, and you can begin to see it more clearly, just as it really is. So over these, it's only a day or so, isn't it? A day and a half or so, yeah. So we try and develop the exercises and then, see how we can apply our increased calm and clarity of mind in this particular theme. There's many different themes we could use, but the theme of I-making, and for myself, just to keep that in mind, this I is made up. It's a making process, not take it too absolutely seriously. So over the next few days, I think you've been introduced to the general schedule and the method of practice here. Noble silence. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we try to maintain the exercises. As I mentioned, with the breathing, you can be aware of the breathing anytime, anywhere, not only here. As you walk down to the kitchen, walk back to your room, be aware of your breathing, even though it's maybe not quite so intense as when you're in a quiet place with your eyes closed, but the breath is always present. As I mentioned, the continuity, keeping up with it, repetition, it supports clarity, calmness of mind. Return to the breath, return to the breath, return to the breath. And then that after a while, your awareness of the breathing becomes a little bit more normalized. Yeah. Most of us are hardly even aware of breathing. Huh? Maybe until you come out to a smoky place. But that's the benefit of having an object which is very common to us, very familiar to us. I mean, not so familiar yet, but it's very available to you. So, and trying to be flexible in the practices. Yeah, the Buddha talked about the 4 different postures: sitting, standing, walking, lying down. He was pointing out that you can develop this meditation exercises in any of the postures, in any particular way that you're directing your body. Not only when you're sitting cross-legged. Yeah. So we try and develop these exercises and just see how it goes in a day and a half. Huh? And then maybe when you're Sunday afternoon, you go home and out there is so noisy you want to rush back again. So I don't want to keep you up too late tonight since we have an early start tomorrow. Huh? You heard about the early start? Huh? 3 o'clock, wasn't it? I couldn't resist. Oh, that's the monastic retreat. Oh, right. Oh, I got the wrong schedule here. No, it's a lazy start tomorrow.
That's right. 5 o'clock, wake up.
Wake up at 5. Oh,
5:30.
5:30 here, meeting here again. So all is clear so far, except the air. It's supposed to be clear tomorrow, I think, is it? Yes, wind coming from the south. So
That's right.
yeah. So we can finish tonight, and then if you want to stay longer, you're quite welcome. The building here is always open. Just the last person put the lights out, and put the candles out. Yeah. So any questions? Okay, good. So you have anything else to say? Nope.
No, I think Mara, you cover everything, right?
Yeah, the only thing I was thinking of is if anyone hasn't put their name down for the work tomorrow, there is the sheet is in the kitchen. Yeah. And cooks are up.
Just arrived. Okay. So we don't have actually, it's a weekend, we don't have work.
Yeah, there's work tomorrow.
We have active meditation.
Oh, sorry.
I guess Australians work on the weekend, do they? I've been Swiss trained. You don't mention work on the weekend in Switzerland, you see. It's forbidden. So they work enough during the week, so it's probably illegal even. It's probably a law against working on. There is a law against working on Sunday, actually. Yeah. So we say active meditation, so then we bypass the law. Okay.
Yeah, right. So bow together, and then people can continue sitting or call it a night. We'll meet again here tomorrow morning.
5:30.
5:30.
Yep.
So.
You spelling or your error hung? Or, Go ahead.
Arahang Samma Sambuddho